This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Sure, the holidays are over, but that doesn't mean the magic has to end. In fact, it's just beginning in the mountains of North Carolina. Our slopes are open and ready for fresh tracks. Our cozy lodges are lit with roaring fires, and our towns are bustling with joy. The only thing missing is you, because the best way for us to get back is for you to come back. For real, visit North Carolina.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back to The Devil Within, Satan's Shadow. This is bonus episode number 2, Lust. Hi, Margot.
Hi.
Hi. I got to start off with something. I got to do a favor for a listener. A guy named Troy sent me a weird message. It wasn't weird. It was funny. He said, is it weird that every time you say, welcome back to The Devil Within, for some weird reason, I want to hear you say, welcome back to The Devil Went Down to Georgia. He's like, because I guess he likes that song. So, Troy, there you go. Hope that did it for you.
I love that song.
I love that song too. It's one of my favorites, and it was.
Me too. And I lived in Georgia.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Georgia when we met. I was in Georgia.
Yeah. Really cool song. So there you go, Troy. Thanks for listening, buddy. Margot, how are you doing?
Good. I'm just, my eyes are just focused on McEnroe in the back. Have you ever oh.
Yeah.
Wow, she heard her name.
Yeah.
She came running.
So I have a rescue sparrow.
Has she been introduced?
No, she hasn't been.
I was going to say, is like she... Oh.
Yeah. All right. Mac is a sparrow who was kicked out of her nest over the summer on the sidewalk in front of my house. And we took her in to see if she could survive the night, and she did. And so we were feeding her with a little eyedropper. And there's a nature conservatory up in Malibu that I was planning to take her to as soon as she was able to fly. But then my family wouldn't let me. So I think we have a pet now. I think we have a pet bird.
You think?
I do. I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on to the idea that it would be better for her to live with other birds.
No, it wouldn't.
She looks out the window at the birds here. I can see in her face she's longing to hang out with other birds.
No, she's not. She's longing to hang out with you. And all she's ever known is you guys. Like, this is now her home. You cannot thrust her into other birds.
She does love me.
No way.
She loves me. I can tell.
She loves you. I can't believe you haven't introduced her to the Devil Within community yet, because like this really endears you to people. There are people who are like on the fence about you, and after seeing this, they're going to be like, oh, love that Brandon.
Well,
you know?
The bottom line is she can't be released into the actual wild because we've robbed her of her survival instinct. She's not afraid of cats or dogs or humans. Okay. So she would have to go to a place like a conservatory where she's basically in a massive aviary, you know, where she could be mostly a real bird, but not exactly a real bird, you know.
No, she's a real bird. She just flew from the shelves behind you over to the computer.
Did you see how erratic and unbird-like her flight path was?
At first I thought like she knocked something off the shelf back there, and I was like, oh no, it's her flying.
That's her. Yeah. She generally can fly like a glide path down and to the left. So I guess that was her injury, that either, excuse me, her mother noticed and kicked her out, or fell out accidentally and sustained the injury when she landed on the sidewalk. So either way.
She's yours forever now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's McEnroe. And I'm glad everyone got to meet her.
Yeah, me too.
So I want to thank you again for agreeing to come on and talk about another episode of The Devil Within. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I'm very much enjoying listening to it.
Thank you. Last week was fun. This week's episode is out right now, and so let's jump in.
Yeah, it's a great episode. So it starts with you talking about the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah.
And I had heard of the Cecil Hotel because of all the deaths that I didn't really know much about it, but I know I had seen like part of that Netflix documentary or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like haunted and people die there. And I saw little bits and pieces. So I was aware of it, but I did not know that it was initially built as a luxury hotel.
Yeah.
And $1.5 million in 1924.
Yeah.
That seems crazy.
It's a lot of money. It was a lot of money. Yeah, I know.
I mean, how much money was that back then? Because I feel like today, 1.5 million, I mean, it's a lot of money to me. I guess It's all relative. But back then, I feel like that's like $1 billion.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't do that cost, the inflationary kind of comparison. So I'm not sure what it would be. But everything was surprising to me about that hotel. And now just kind of the bad luck with what happened in the neighborhoods kind of surrounding it, that how other hotels, people followed their lead, and other hotels kind of made it not obsolete, but not, the only game in town.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad that you're appreciating it, because, people who've been listening to the show for a long time give me a lot of leeway with the off ramps that I take, just shit that I find interesting, that I want to kind of dive into. That's sometimes not entirely connected,
relevant
to the actual story that we're telling. Wait to hear episode 3, but it is.
It was though.
But
it
just paints a larger kind of atmospheric kind of picture of what we're doing.
I actually think I like that. Okay. That's something that like I don't know. I have struggled to do that. And I think you do a good job of that. And the Cecil Hotel is very related to this because.
Yeah. Listen, it would be more relevant if like he took people there and tortured them there and killed people. But no, it was a flop house for him, right? That's where he would sleep. And it was cheap. That's where he'd buy drugs. That's where he'd fence his stolen goods. Like it was a kind of a base of operations where a freak like him didn't even begin to stand out given the atmosphere of the place, right? So that was the one thing about Ramirez that he was really, really good at, which was hiding in plain sight. That's why he loved freeways. That's why he loved living off of Skid Row and in the Cecil Hotel, where nothing was taboo and no one would look twice at you because everyone had their own shit going on, and he found a lot of safety there.
Yeah, I mean, whereas other people found a lot of unsafety there and death. I mean, the poison capsules, that was interesting. Who the hell has poison capsules? What a terrible way to kill yourself also. Like, ugh, can't imagine. And then, so I was interested and I looked up like how many people have actually died there since it came about. And it's 16 sudden or unexplained deaths. Which is a lot.
That's a lot for one property, sure.
And I thought that was interesting because when you were discussing Elisa Lam, how do you say her name? Alyssa Lam, in who they found in the water tank. You're like, they didn't know how she got in there. Nobody could explain how she got in there, but there was like no mention of potential supernatural or hauntings or anything really at all when you were talking about the Cecil, which was interesting because I guess not in this season, but in The Devil Within, there has been supernatural stuff. And you didn't even mention that.
Because it would have been a 3-hour episode and I would have forgotten what I was supposed to talk about.
Okay.
Right? So I have to have a little bit of discipline, right? Yes, I could have spent several episodes on the Cecil Hotel and paranormal stuff and Alyssa Lamb and all of this other kind of, alleged kind of stuff. But I needed a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like today it's still the same. Like, unfortunately for the Cecil, it has not changed. I read that there are substandard living conditions, including black mold, vermin, water leaks, graffiti, vandalism, and unsanitary communal amenities.
Yeah, and then so what's weird about it, what for me, is then you see the security cam footage of Alyssa Lamb in the elevator acting really fucking weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Who knows what was going on? But it looks like a very modern elevator.
Yeah.
I lived for a long time in a building in Hollywood built in the 1920s. Okay. And the elevator looked like it was like a small cage, like the size of a phone booth, right? With the gate that you had to, you could reach out and touch the walls as you were going. Like super dangerous and awful. Okay. But the one that she was, so there's obviously been some significant upgrades over the years, just to have that elevator with cameras, and it looked like it was, like metal. Right? Yeah, it was weird. So
that's weird that it has the cameras, because I would think that would be a put off for people who are there, like Richard Ramirez, or like who are doing shady things. They wouldn't want cameras there.
Yeah, but I think when it was designated as like government subsidized like public housing, that there are certain things that you have to have cameras. You have to have this. You have to have that. Right? So they're probably just up to like civic code or whatever. But yeah, that whole area is really depressed and really dangerous.
Still to this day.
That's sad. It's Skid Row, man. It's
too bad, because it sounds like it was beautiful at one point. The hotel, the way you describe it in the beginning. Yeah.
Listen, the city planners never say, and this is where all the homeless people are going to end up, right? The city planners are like, let's make a beautiful city of our dreams, a utopian kind of thing, right? And then, it kind of happens on its own,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So then you get into talking about Richard Ramirez, and you talk about his afflictions, temporal lobe epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what that was. I mean, I know what epilepsy is, seizures, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that has something to do with your temporal lobe, perhaps?
Yeah, temporal lobe, to my knowledge, and again, believe it or not, I'm not a neurosurgeon, or even I don't have a medical license, but no, it's true. It's true. Like auditory hallucinations, psychomotor seizures, those kind of things are what come from the temporal lobe epilepsy. So like you'll hear weird shit, you'll hear voices. There was this great story a novel that I read once that was based on a true story. What was it called? I think it was called Lying Awake, maybe. But it was about a nun, like a young, like maybe 20s, 30s nun, completely devoted to her faith and her love of the Lord and being married to Jesus and being charitable and like really like one of the good people in religion, right? And but then she started having problems with seizures, with temporal lobe kind of seizures. And what I didn't know it's true is that if you are like a priest or a nun, or you have any kind of holy orders that you're living under, and you are diagnosed with an affliction like that, you have to leave. You get like defrocked, because it could lead to false visions of God, right? And they
interesting.
Right, they don't want you to be under the impression that God's talking to you when you're just having a seizure or an auditory hallucination or whatever. It was a heartbreaking story. Yeah. I know.
Sad.
Yeah, it's like
kind of out of your control.
Yeah. So, but with some whack job like Ramirez, like who knows how that, right? What that
presented itself,
right? Because we haven't even we barely scratched the surface of his what would become his obsession with Satanism as a kind of a driving factor in as his crimes.
Yeah, you haven't.
Now, as his crimes escalated, it gets gnarly, and so that could be one of the that is one of the possible explanations that get explored later on in the series.
Okay. So he had temporal lobe epilepsy, aggressivity, which I'm assuming is what it sounds like, aggressive behavior,
But
and what?
Yeah, no, but like not just aggressive, right? Like swing first, like right to violence, like
Right.
aggressive in action, aggressive in speech, aggressive in thought, aggressive in how you turn on the fucking radio, like that, just everything, right?
What a terrible way to live.
Right? No shit. Like everything has to be just turned up to fucking 11, everything you do. Right. So
I can't like before this, I was trying to print out my notes and the printer wasn't working. And I was like, oh, so fucking annoying. And I was like going to throw it. And I asked ChatGPT, why the fuck isn't my printer working?
Yeah.
And it told me and I figured it out. But like, I hate feeling that way.
Yeah.
Like that I'm losing like that I'm so frustrated that I can't reel myself in. And that's a very stupid minor example, but to feel that way all the time would be so uncomfortable.
Imagine if you had if you thought that was just your natural existence. Yeah.
Yeah. And then add in the hypersexuality.
Yeah.
Like,
woo.
So, I mean, my first thought when you were talking about hypersexuality, I was like, well, that's every dude, isn't it? But it's not, obviously.
No, it's not, because I looked into it and I found it interesting that when that term was entered into the lexicon, it was to kind of phase out the terms nymphomaniac for women and sex maniac for men. Okay.
Yeah. Why two different terms, by the way?
I don't know. You call dudes sex maniac. And so, but a lot of people, myself included, would be under the impression that, yeah, that's all dudes. Dudes are horny, right? But it's not that. Hypersexuality, one of the determining factors is you're not just thinking about it. You have a physical reaction. Like you're walking around. Right. You're walking around.
Guy, that sucks.
Yes. Yeah. Constantly ready to go. Constantly ready to go.
Pitching a tent everywhere
there you go. Thank you, Margot. Yes. Yeah.
That's terrible.
So combine that uber aggressive nature with a constant erection, and now you're a drug addict fucking lunatic with,
he didn't have a chance.
With psychomotor seizures. His victims had no chance. He was a beast.
Yeah, his victims had no chance, but neither did he. You did say something, and it's not directly in front of me, but you said something in here about and it's much later in the episode, but whether he was this way or whether he was made this way.
No, he was
going to talk about it in a later episode.
Right. He was diagnosed a made psychopath instead of a born psychopath. Right.
I'm excited to hear more about that because I think that's a super interesting ongoing
it's
you can have that
scary
conversation about anything.
It's scary in its simplicity how it happened, to be honest.
Oh, I can't wait to find because I actually don't know that about him. I don't think so.
And this is medical opinions. There's no, that's why they call it practicing medicine. There's no real definitive kind of thing, but this is what was determined given his history. So I'll get to it.
Well, and I read that I don't know if this is even today, but at least for a while, hypersexuality, there's been debate. Is this a clinical term?
Right.
Is this just, an opinion? But I mean, if you're walking around with a boner and that you can't control it, that seems clinical to me.
See, there's a difference, right? Not a difference. There are separate factors, right? There's the physical manifestation. You could have that. That's called something else, where you're constantly physically aroused, but you don't have the burning desire to go and get rid of it. You're like, oh, this is happening again. Let me get back to being an accountant, right? Yeah. Then there's the opposite, where you're constantly thinking about sexual gratification, but you don't have the physical manifestation. Okay, that's also not hypersexuality. It's both combined, where you have the obsessive drive and you have your body kind of co-signing that for you, right? And you're like, okay, here we go. It's on.
Yeah, a medical condition that causes unwanted or excessive sexual arousal, causing the afflicted to engage in or think about sexual activity to a point of distress or impairment. I mean, that sucks. Taking one of life's like great pleasures and like now it's an affliction that you can't like
Yeah.
can't even imagine. So then you got into the architecture of perdition, which okay, first of all, this whole paragraph that you say, I had to go find the transcript and read it and that's just for me, like I can listen and understand things, but I always understand something better if I read it, like with my eyes. So I must have listened to you say this paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here the architecture of perdition unfolded in sweeping vistas, a vast and featureless plain of desolation, interrupted only by the ceaseless gyrations of a tempest that paid homage to no god or sun. And then you continue to go on. So like I understand the words that you're saying, but for some reason for me, this was hard for me to like, I don't know, digest it or comprehend. Like I was like, I get it, but I don't get it. So I had to go and read it. And then I understood it. And it's really well written. But I didn't know what the architecture of perdition meant. So I had to look that up. And then it made sense to me that it's a poetic or metaphorical phrase that likely refers to the structure or design of damnation, which I feel like you can tell from context clues, but I don't know. Maybe I'm exposing my stupidity when it comes to religion and history that it was tough for me. And I think I said that to you after the first time I listened to it. You're like, did you like it? I was like, I did, but there's some parts I got to go listen to again.
Yeah.
Because it just didn't like my brain couldn't compute it the way that I felt I needed to. So I think it's interesting. Like it's really an interesting dynamic that you're talking about this like hypersexual, just psychopath, and then like these beautiful glimpses into Dante history, literature. It's very interesting.
Well, thanks. That's the hardest part for me in this, and the most fun for me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm swinging and missing a lot, but reading Dante, the translation that I'm in, he's a poet, right? It's very poetic and very beautiful, and so like I said, I've got to split up my writing sessions here, right? There's me telling the Night Stalker's story, and then there's me kind of giving cliff notes on the Inferno, right? And I want to try and be lyrical and beautiful and and just stay kind of in that kind of world, borrowing some of his words, borrowing some of his language, right? Using the word tempest instead of storm. It's a little thing, but it just helps me stay in that world.
Well, I think that's exactly that's the perfect way to say it. It's like a poetic Cliff Notes. Because I haven't read Dante.
There you go.
I've never even looked at it. Like I have no idea what anything in there is. So now I feel like I'm getting a Cliff Notes to it and learning some things.
Yeah, the second circle of hell now is for the lustful, right? Yep.
And I learned about this was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for myself because you talk about Judge Minos. Like I lived in Greece for a year. I studied Greek. Yeah, I mean, like I lived there for a year. I went to like all the historic everything throughout all of Greece, and learned about Greek mythology from like a Greek professor at the University of Aristotle. And so I started, and I was like, "Oh, Greek mythology," and I was like, "No, I don't really know who that is." So but I really liked, and now I want to know more about this Judge Minos, coiling his tail around himself a specific number of times, each coil signifying the level of hell to which the soul must be consigned. That's cool.
Yes.
I was like, that'd be a cool tattoo.
Right. So you're just waiting there to see how many coils, like, going to gluttony. Ah, damn it. Right.
Yeah. I thought that was I really liked that. And then this whole section, so I labeled it in my notes. It's called New to Me because I didn't know any of this stuff. And so there were a few other things I looked up in this canto. I mean, I was an English major. How
Oh,
did I
really?
not know that meant a chapter in a book?
Chapter.
Well, I mean, for a poem, it's
Poem. Yeah.
yeah, I had no idea. I looked that up. Um, and then there's a line in there where you say, "See the price of unbridled passion." And immediately the first thing that came into my mind was like, it reminded me of like religion, like scare tactics in religion, when it's like, if you do this, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Like
The wages of sin.
Yeah.
The price of unbridled passion is just is rephrasing the wages of sin. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Like, to me, I would never be like, yeah, definitely put that in there. I want to learn about that. Like, I wouldn't. I would be like, no, just stick to Ramirez.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it and I am learning something. So I like this dual storytelling that you're doing and how you're like weaving them together.
Well, thank you. It was a creative choice, obviously, because everybody that I've talked to that lived through that time in LA was like, they said, we felt like we were descending into hell. Like that's been consistent throughout almost every story that you hear from people, right?
You weren't here. You weren't here.
I was not.
You were not in LA.
It was brutally hot, like still in the 90s in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, right? So that right there, it fucks with you emotionally, right? Like that gets you in a place. Then there's a maniac out there who's targeting random victims, no rhyme or reason. It's going on for over a year, right? And that's how people were feeling. And so that was, whenever I'm going to embark on a new season, for me, for it to be interesting, like I told you last week, for it to be interesting for me, I have to have some kind of something fun, something that makes it just a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
And this made sense.
Yeah, I know. See, and to me, I would never be like, oh, Dante's Inferno, that's fun. But you, that is fun and it makes sense in here. Okay, so next on the list.
Yeah.
Gil
Carrillo, yeah. The madman.
Man who would become the tip of the spear in the hunt for the Night Stalker. That's a good line.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's a good line.
Unfortunately, Mr. Carrillo, we had a nice conversation, but he couldn't.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but he couldn't go on the record with me because he has he's committed to a project somewhere else that wrapped up all of his rights. He was super cool. I'm like, I get it, brother. I love you. You did excellent work for the city. And, he pointed me into some directions for some things that are in the public domain, right? Like some interviews that were created by like the public library in Los Angeles or sheriff's department, which is public. So we're going to hear his voice throughout the series, but not like one-on-one, unfortunately.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That sucks.
Yeah.
But that's cool that you talked to him.
Yeah. He's super cool. I was on the phone with him for a long time.
How is he old today? How old is he?
He was born in 51 or 52, I think. So he's what, 70s?
Okay. He's like 70,
Yeah.
70s.
Yep.
Okay. And there's not too much about him in this. Like there's a little, but like I feel like we're gonna get more of Gil as we go.
Sprinkled throughout. Yes.
Sprinkled. Okay. But I automatically liked him when you said that he had 3 goals when he got out of the service: to go to college, to get back together with the girl who dumped him when he left for war, and to become a cop. And by 1971, he had accomplished all 3. How cool.
Yep.
Most people don't accomplish all of their goals,
but
sadly.
It's one of those great stories where just the influence of one person completely changed the trajectory of his life. Okay. He was just a 17-year-old kid, not good, not bad, just kind of could have gone either way. And a local beat cop, just a local fucking cop, sees him and goes, he could be good or he could be really bad. I got to go talk to his parents.
He lucked out.
And his parents went, but hold on, talk about a fucking risk. Sending you to Vietnam where young men are dying by the thousands.
That's true.
But go ahead, learn some fucking discipline and let's see if you survive. And he went and he thrived under that structure of the military. Okay. Did really well. And it changed. What if that cop isn't, I'm busy, or I'm going to get a hot dog instead. I'm not going to stop by this kid's house, because it would change his entire life. Right. So you never know how you're going to affect somebody. Right. So It's really interesting to think about, and that's what I wanted to talk to Gil about the most, but wasn't able to. I guess someone else wants to talk to him about it also. So, yeah.
And you said that he's the youngest homicide detective in the history of the LA County Sheriff's Department. Is that true still to this day?
I think it is. It's rare that you have someone in their mid-30s that makes detective, right?
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true.
I know for sure it was at the time, and that's all I can say definitively. I'm not sure if that's still true today.
It's true today. Is he still married to his high school sweetheart?
Earl, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so rare.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yep.
I wonder if they still like each other. That's a long time to be together. But for some people, it's like, that's amazing.
Got married 50 plus years.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
I've been married for 17, but G and I have been together for 20, this will be 26 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Long time.
It's 3 of the best years of my life.
I was like, wait, what?
That was her late dad. That was her late father's favorite joke. He would say it 100 times a year. When anyone asked him how long you're married, he'd say it, and then he'd always follow with, he'd say like 43 years. 3 of the best years of my life.
I like that. Would she ever come on here and do that? I feel like she would just.
She just shakes her head.
In your place, and I would love to see it.
Shakes her head. My dumb jokes. Yes.
Okay, so now to my favorite part, which is terrible, but the murders. The murders of this episode. And not that I know that there's going to be murders in every episode, but Vincent and Maxine Cesara.
Yeah.
First of all, how much do you think that they were regretting? Well, they can't because they died, but I mean, they should have gotten that security system.
Let me ask you something first. Did my jersey come out at all and I called him Zazara at all? Or was it that I always say Zazara? Did you notice any?
I don't know. What did I just say?
You said Zazara. You said it right.
Zazara.
But I'm recording episode 3, doing the previously on. I said Zazara. But anyway. So
no, I didn't notice.
It's one of those things, man, that you look back on and was he thinking about it like in the moment? Was she thinking about it in the moment?
No.
No. I don't know, but it was weird. The house by the freeway, like it was one of those opportunistic.
Okay, I have a question. The second that you hear that this guy that somebody is killing people, even if it's only like twice.
Yeah.
Killing people in houses by freeways. I'm moving. Bye.
You can't just move.
I'm leaving my house.
It's hard to kind of just move and leave your house.
Okay, well then I'm kind of like going to stay with a friend for a couple months.
Yeah, or you get a security system, or you get a
security system, I guess. But like, I don't know. Back then, what is a security system doing, really?
It was just sad. It's a sad story. Like, they're all sad stories. Okay,
of course.
And that's something that I learned from a woman, a partner of mine that I do another show with, who at first I was like, man, you're really giving a lot of time to these victims. Let's stick with the sexy murder stuff, But it wound up affecting me and made me feel more of a connection to the episodes when I'm listening to them or editing them or doing bonus episodes with her. The more I know about the victims, yes, it makes me sad or it makes me angry, it makes me scared for my family, whatever. But it gives me more of a connection to the material, to the content, right? So saying little things like, he always wanted to own a pizzeria, but he was stuck as a fucking investment banker for a long time,
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay, Reese's. Really working, actually. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's.
Well, it's a new year, and with it comes those resolutions, where you give up this and you give up that. Maybe this year, instead of giving something up, Give something to yourself, like a trip to the mountains of North Carolina. After all, it's a very easy resolution to keep, and a noble one too, because the best way for us to get back is for you to come back. Now that's starting the year off right. For real, visit North Carolina.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Don't miss out on the final football game of the season with Prize Picks. Join now because Prize Picks are giving away a free pick for the big game where 1 yard equals 1 win. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app and use code FIELD and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
You told me this when I started Death by Southwest. You said, you got to find like one thing about each person that you're talking about. And like, it could seem like such a, like nothing fact, but something that humanizes them to people, like something that like makes them a person. And that's how I started all the episodes, is I talk about the victim.
It's great.
Get to know them from childhood to current life. I have a follow-up question that relates to that, but I'm going to save it for last.
Okay.
It has to do with Carolyn and victims and stuff.
Gotcha.
But yes, this was sad. This couple sounded so sweet. I
know.
It was very sad. And so you say the need to neutralize any male figures that could possibly get in his way, talking about Ramirez. He didn't need to see the fear in Vincent's eyes to get aroused by murdering him. He was considered an impediment to a successful evening. And so this made me think about just how interesting, like murderers, it seems like they have everyone has their own like little set of like their own like Bible, their own like set of rules. Like Ramirez does need to see the fear in their eyes when it's
the one.
But for men, he doesn't need to.
The men are in his way. That's it.
Right.
He's not like a cat with a mouse with the men. He just kills them. The women, he wants them to see the fear. And that's explained. His entire modus operandi. I'll tease it a little bit. It's almost like military precision that he moves with. Okay, and that's no accident.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you'll see.
Yeah, I couldn't think of another. I'm not like super well. I don't know, have memorized all of the serial killers, like what their MOs are and stuff. But this felt like it's like they each have like a playbook that they kind of go by. This is an interesting. I found that interesting. And then the part where I was listening and I was like screaming because when she got the Maxine raised the weapon just as Ramirez re-entered the room. It was pointed right at him. The shotgun blast would tear him in half. He knew it and braced for the inevitable. It wasn't loaded. And I was like, no.
Ask any gun guy. Ask any fucking gun guy, right? It's like
bullets in the closet.
Why have it unloaded? It's just a piece of metal. Unless you're going to swing it,
Thank you.
It's not anything. I know. Listen, I'm not a gun guy, but I know that. I
am a gun person, and I do not understand why would you have a gun if A, it's locked up so far away from you that it's going to take you 10 minutes to get it out, or if it's not loaded. Like, what's the point? For me, the point is that if somebody breaks in, I'm shooting you.
I'm shoot them in the face.
Shooting you. Yeah, my mom always said, shoot them, and don't shoot them to hurt them. Shoot them to kill them.
Exactly.
So, like, that's what I'm doing, and I don't want to have to be. When if somebody's breaking into your house, you don't want to be digging around for a gun.
Gosh.
And so I was so like, yes, she got the gun. She got a gun under the bed. And then the bullets are in the closet. Yeah. What the fuck? And that feeling, I was trying to imagine that feeling she must have felt in those like mere moments.
Yeah.
Between realizing it's unloaded and realizing like, I'm going to fucking die.
You just made it so much worse because you scared him, right? And you pissed him off. Yeah. I know.
Oh my God. I mean, that really made me sad that those were the last moments of her life. How awful. And then he took her eyes out. He removed her eyes and put them in a jewelry box, and they never found it.
Yeah. Now, again, this is something that someone might yell at me for because the preponderance of the reporting on these eyeballs is that they were never found. I saw 1 or 2 mentions that maybe that jewelry box wound up in an evidence locker somewhere, that they found it. But I went with, I admit it, I went with the gory,
far more interesting,
the interesting one, that he has them somewhere or they're hidden or he buried them or whatever. That's what I
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being somebody like a year from now and they're just like their kids playing in the backyard and they like dig up a jewelry box with eyeballs?
Oh gosh, but he took her eyes.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't.
So why do you think he took her eyes?
Because he didn't get to it has got to have something to do with that he liked to see the fear in their eyes before he killed them. But I mean, I guess he got to see the fear in her eyes, but it must have been he didn't get to like linger in it because he killed her so quickly.
Here's what I think. Because of everything that you just said, right? That the gun pulled the gun on him. He was scared. He thought he was going to die. The gun wasn't loaded. So that's an instant shift of power. It went from him being scared to her being as scared as she's ever been in her life. And he saw that in her eyes and wanted to take that with him.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Because he caused such abject fear. He was so proud of himself, he took a trophy. These are the most scared eyes I'd ever seen, and I'm taking that shit with me.
Yeah, that's it. I believe that. I think that that's true.
Crazy.
Which is just
yeah.
God. And then so you say he carved an upside down cross in Maxine's chest, his first of many satanic symbols he would leave behind. Then, true to his sickness, he attempted to rape the corpse of Maxine, but still shaken by his own near-death experience, he couldn't perform. So I'm assuming we know this because he must have retold this in interviews, which I guess we're only on episode 2, so I don't feel like I know enough about him to know, but it just seems like he wouldn't want to admit that to somebody. You know, like that would have been hard for him to admit.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he chose to share that with police.
Well, just to put your mind at ease and to answer, scratch that itch. It wasn't like, hey, I couldn't get it up. So I tried. No, I tried. You know me. It wasn't that. He was asked. He was asked, why didn't you rape her? And he got agitated. And so given his psychological profile, it was determined, given the amount of anger he showed when asked that question, because there wasn't any sign of sexual assault.
That makes sense.
Right. They went, oh, he couldn't
get it up.
Right.
Okay. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
This whole story about these two really I was so frustrated because the sneaker print, I mean, that's wonderful. The fact that the sneaker print would be among the most important pieces of evidence that law enforcement would use in the coming months. And it was, because of that fresh soil, because Vincent was a gardener and landscaper. And, oh my God. I loved hearing that. I like that. They planted plants and trees.
Yeah.
And sad that he didn't get to relish in that. I wish he could have survived.
Right. Just long enough to know.
Yeah.
That he reached up from
that was really cool.
Grabbed a shoe print. Yeah. For the cops. Yeah.
Yep. And so then you talk about Avias. Never heard of those. I had never heard of those, but they still exist. You can buy them at Walmart. Apparently, yes, I looked them up and they look like old person shoes, like an old person, like working in a hospital shoes.
In the 80s, the biggest basketball stars in the world, just before the Jordan Revolution, were wearing Adidas. They were right up there with Adidas and whatever. They were a big company. Yeah.
Yeah. Never heard of them, but that makes sense because I had Air Jordans and I loved Michael Jordan lived, 20 minutes from us.
Me too. I never had Adidas. I had Converse All-Stars, I had Vans, and I had Jordans.
Yes.
Yep. That was it.
Don't try and act like you had Jordans. Like we're not the same age, okay? Don't put us in the same age bracket.
But then I had a huge brand shift to Adidas once I discovered Run DMC. Then it was all Adidas.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Because when you say that, I picture your velour brown jumpsuit.
Suit. Yeah. Yeah. I was a break dancer in the 80s. I'll say it. I was a badass break. I had a breakdance name, Margot. Do you want to know what it was? I don't think you're ready for this heat. You're not ready.
Oh, I'm trying to imagine. I can't.
When I was 13, okay, I was part of a crew called the Cardboard Lords, okay?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
My breakdance name was Shockwave. We had a lyricist. We had a lyricist, like a rapper in the crew who made up raps for all of us. I had my own rap. I had everything. It was great.
Did they have video recording back then? Because I really wish you had that on.
There was video of me in my sweatsuits, my windbreakers.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Shockwave.
Okay. So is that why you got that velour suit for, what was that, Christmas like 2 years ago or something? I feel like.
It was a track suit. Yes.
Okay, but you're not Tony Soprano. Like, I mean.
But yes, that's why. Yes, my wife was giving me a little. It was like a time machine.
A little bit of
here you go.
Childhood.
Yes, this is how it was, and I love it.
Very sweet.
I don't wear it out of the house.
Sure,
I could totally could, but I don't.
You could.
So anyway, yes, Shockwave. You need to go Shockwave from now
on. So the next part, like the ending part of this, is when you're talking about abducting and molesting children in spare time, in their spare time. That was one of your sentences, and I was like, what a weird fucking sentence. I'm abducting and molesting children in my spare time.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not, but that is a weird sentence to say. And you talk about how, with regard to criminal behavior, there was no precedent for an offender with such a broad appetite for crimes, like different ages, races, locations. And that's still, at least from my knowledge of watching every, detective show on television, that's still today. I mean, like, it's not common for somebody to kill in a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different ages, races, and whatnot. And children, yeah, that's that's weird.
Detective
weird.
Detective Creo said it. He's to this day unique in the realm of criminal kind of victimology and modus and methods of operation. No one had done it before. There was no precedent for Ramirez, and no one has done it since. Right, where he's all over the map: age, race, location, weapon, ligature or strangulation, shootings, stabbings, beatings to death. Some get raped, some don't. Abducting children. Some women he let live, kids he let go. Wow. I mean, that's what
that was interesting.
Yeah.
That like he let the kids go.
He dropped them off. Here you go.
Right.
See ya. Fuck your life.
But I find it hard to believe that he had like any moral. Like, I don't feel like that was like, he was like, oh, well, they're children, I can't kill them.
Well, that's an interesting, really, really interesting kind of nuance here. And you go back to the Ted Bundy thing, where he talked at length, proudly, about almost all of his victims, okay, admitted to it. These beautiful young co-eds in their late teens, early 20s, right? Mm-hmm. But he also definitively, by DNA evidence and tons of forensic evidence, raped and murdered like an 8-year-old girl that he would never discuss. He would end interviews if you tried to bring it up because he felt that was beneath him and beneath that would tarnish his legacy as a serial killer, because people view children, they just do differently, right? It's like my wife will watch murder shows all day, but a show where a pet dies, and she's like, turn that fucking show off right now.
Same. That's why I love her. Agreed. Totally.
So if you take that up to another level, right? Societally, obviously, like look what happens to pedophiles in jail. You get fucking destroyed. You know what I mean? So
yes, you do.
So maybe somewhere you might think that Ramirez had that line, But as it will be revealed later in the season, he really didn't have that line.
Yeah, it seems hard to imagine.
But at this time he did. Because remember, what we're still dealing with is the early stages of what will become a massive escalation. You think it's bad now?
Right. Like, how do you escalate from this?
No.
Ugh.
Just, yeah. So at this time, he would break into a house that he was robbing. If he saw a young girl, he'd take her, do his maniacal, diabolical bullshit. And then, like, I can't, no, go, get out of here, drop her off. And he would kind of scratch that hypersexuality itch, okay? Get that out of his system. Fucking maniac. And then, go fence the stuff that he stole, buy cocaine, get all fucking crazy, and then start all over again, But as it happens, he left evidence at this construction site.
Yes, that was so this Carrillo had a ballistics match, a corroborated description of his perpetrator, and additional forensic evidence, including a fingerprint from the screen at the Vincow residence, and 2 shoe prints that tie them all together. So the soil from Vincent's house, and then from where he dropped the girl off, like one of the children that he raped off. It was by a construction site. He stepped in cement or whatever.
Like cement. Yep.
Yep. And so 2 size 11
and a half. Yeah. Via aerobic shoe. Yep.
And so no one is believing Gil Carrillo at this point.
Not yet, because you can't really blame them. They're going by the book, right? They're like, there's no way that's one guy that's killing an 80-year-old and then raping a 10-year-old.
Okay, but like, so we have 2 killers on the loose who just happened to wear an 11 and a half Avia shoe and a ballistics. Well, and the same description. I guess those are the 2 things that connect them.
When you have 2, maybe, but when you have 3, right, where you have like a grown-up saying, bulging eyes and rotten, stinky teeth, and then you have a little girl saying
multiple little girls, it sounds like
rotten, stinky teeth. Like, whoa, right? So that for Gil, and maybe he was maybe that's not a good thing to have blinders on when you're a cop, like being so convinced of something, right? But but he was, and he turned out to be right, and he just needed someone to believe him. And he found someone to believe him.
Yes. The other detective, Frank
Salerno, right? The great.
I like that last name.
Frank Salerno. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next episode to hear more. So here's my ending question.
Yeah.
Because I just talked about this on my bonus episode that I did yesterday on my podcast. And I don't remember how it came up, but I do remember listening to Carolyn's podcast. And I don't know if it was the Shadow Girls or if it was Criminal Mischief. I don't know. I've listened to her, here and there.
Yeah.
And I know that she has said that she does it like for the victims. She likes to have a lot of awareness bring awareness for the victims and for the victims. And I've heard that on lots of true crime podcasts. It's for the victims or to help them, if it's unsolved, whatever. And so this is probably going to get me backlash, but on my podcast yesterday, I was like, I can appreciate that. And I respect that entirely, but that's not why I started this. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm going to be honest, I started this because Cavalry told me to start it. And now I like doing it. And sure, if some awareness or something is good comes from this for the victims, their families, solving something, whatever, great. But like, I didn't start this for that. I feel terrible for all the victims, but that wasn't my purpose. And I guess maybe I've heard a lot of true crime podcasts where they say that at the beginning, like, I'm only doing this for the victims. And I find that, like, are you? So my question to you is like, is that something that's in your head? And you don't have to answer that because it does put you on the spot. But like, I have no shame in saying that. There's no way all the fucking true crime podcasts, everybody's like, you're doing it for the victims. Right. No, you're doing it because people love true crime.
So, okay, Carolyn's an advocate. That is
right.
her.
I do know that. Yes.
That is her thing.
I'm not saying she is not.
Right. And if you
honest
listen to the Shadow Girls, you'll know why. Very personal reasons. She's an advocate for female victims. I'm more on your side. Okay. I like the storytelling. I like the drama.
Right.
I like the sadness of the victims that makes me feel sad and make me want to kind of like make sure their story gets out. Not in a way that's in any way advocacy for like victims groups or anything, but I'm just being honest, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just like I said earlier, to help listeners connect a little bit more. To connect, right? Like, I knew a guy who owned a pizzeria. Wow, fuck, I could have been this guy. You know, something just to increase the kind of social relationship that we're making over the airwaves or whatever podcast stuff. You know, just say this was a real person that I didn't know, and that I'm exploiting their story for my podcast. I'm very aware of all of that.
Okay, good. Me too.
Yeah, of course. And
I think a lot of people don't admit to that, and that bothers the shit out of me.
No. But the reason that I'm okay with it is because I do my best in a way that's, even though I'm exploiting it, it's not exploitative.
That's disrespectful.
It's respectful. I try to be as accurate as I can. I never claim to be a journalist at all. I don't have that ethical kind of boundary, right? I'm telling stories.
So my final and follow-up question to that is, because my sister asked me this back when we did the podcast together, and I still think about it. She was like, now what if mom, our mom passed away, but what if she was murdered and you heard someone who didn't know her, didn't know you, didn't know anything about your family except for what they read in the news, doing a podcast on her murder? And I was like, fucking piss me off. That would piss me off. I'd be like, don't talk about you don't know her. If you want to talk about her, you better reach out to me and I'll tell you, yes, let me tell you about her, or no, don't do that. And that always gives, look, I haven't stopped doing the podcast. I'm still telling these stories, but it definitely gives me pause a little bit of like, I wonder, I'm sure none of the people who are related to or friends with the victims have heard my little podcast, but I don't know. So how would you feel if someone who was close to you had been murdered and you heard some random dude doing a podcast on them?
That's weird. That's an interesting question. I don't know. It would depend on the quality of the podcast, right? It would depend on how they treated the story. Were they respectful? Were they honest as they could be? Were they coming from a point of storytelling, right? And not glorifying the murderer or not like shitting on the victim or whatever. But I've come close to those scenarios. I did a 3-episode series on my weekly show called My Hometown, because there were 3 serial killers from my hometown in a 20-year period. Okay.
3?
Yeah. And so,
oh my God.
Right.
Is your hometown very small?
It's tiny. It's a tiny
3
place.
Serial killers? What is in the water there?
And now listen, it's only since the FBI altered the number of bodies what someone has to have from 3 to 2 to be considered a serial killer. Right. Before that, it used to be there were 3 double murderers from my hometown. But now I can say, according to the FBI standards, 3 serial killers.
Much more salacious.
Much more salacious. Clickbait. Yeah. I get it. But so, I'm one person removed from someone who knew the victims, right? Like my brother knows what graduated with the guy who murdered his parents for, the money, and knew his and knew it, right? So the kid's in jail, obviously, but I could get a call. So what the fuck you doing a show about my parent? Like, because you killed him, dipshit. Okay. And I would see you at parties, so it was
weird.
Yeah. It's really weird.
That's very weird. That is creepy.
So it can expand. You can expand that question to look at all of the murder documentaries and everything out there, right? There are so many victims' families that still survive that have to deal with these, that have to deal with these. Right. Yeah. So it's,
you don't have to be you could look at it both ways. Like, it's being done so much and I'm doing it respectfully. And you could also look at it like, well, just because other people are doing it, like, does that mean that you need to jump on the true crime bandwagon?
Yeah.
No, I go back and forth. Like,
right.
My reaction wasn't, well, it depends on how the podcast is told or like the quality of it. I was just like, no, I'd be fucking like, don't talk about my mom.
Yeah.
No. And that's super hypocritical of me because I'm doing what I wouldn't want someone else to do.
You're owning it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to stop doing it, at least right now. So
what's coming up on Death by Southwest? Talk to me.
I moved my bonus. So bonus episodes are usually just me just blabbing about whatever I feel like in life. And I haven't been doing that lately. I've been doing a crime story somewhere else in the country than the Southwest. So like yesterday I did one in Michigan and called it Death by Midwest. And so I'm going to continue doing that, I think, because there's some interesting stories that don't take place necessarily in the Southwest.
You do Death by Southwest Australia, Death by Southwest.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. So that, and I don't know. That's it. I did my first Patreon's like cocktail hour with patrons last Friday night. And so like I just opened it up to any patrons. They want to hop on Zoom for a half hour and like talk and have a drink. And they did. And I think 5 people got on, and we were on for like almost 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Chatting and
Congratulations.
to know each other. So
congratulations. That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much again for your thoughtful questions and for taking the time to
I like doing this.
to talk about this episode. It means the world to me. So thank you everybody for listening. Remember, The Devil Within, Satan's Shadow is in release now. First 2 episodes are out, and episode every week for the next couple of months. So
and don't forget to go leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a comment on Spotify. And you can also now watch the video of these bonus episodes on Spotify and YouTube.
Thank you very much. And please check out Margot's wonderful podcast, Death by Southwest. You will not be disappointed. Until next time, everybody, stay safe out there. Thank you.
Bye.
The Devil Within is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. Written and produced by Brandon Morgan, executive produced by Danny Abelson. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.